In this video, we're going to look at how to find one variable statistics in Google Sheets using the formulas. The first thing that we need to do is make sure you have your Integrated Math 1 folder. If you don't have that for some reason, click on New and create a folder and name it Integrated Math 1. I already have that, so I'm going to hit Cancel. Then open that folder by double-clicking. And you should already have a folder in there for the statistics project. If you don't have any of the folders, then pause the video along the way and create them. When I double click on that, I have 3 more folders in there. One of those is for my data. When you open that, you should already have your data Google spreadsheet in there. If for some reason you don't, then create it now and do New Google Sheet, and it'll open a new blank spreadsheet for you. If you already have your data, then don't create a new one. We're going to use the one that we already have. So you would just open up your spreadsheet. So I already have it open here in another tab. And as you can see, I already have my 1 variable data and my 2 variable data set up. And what I'm going to do is create a third sheet where I'm going to put my example and the formulas that go with it. So hit the plus sign down at the bottom to add a new sheet. Then we're going to go ahead and double click on that and name it example formulas. At any point, pause the video if I go too fast and rewind to rewatch to follow along. The first thing we're going to do is set up our data. So copy all of this into your own spreadsheet. In the first column is going to be names. And in the second one, it's going to be number of chicken wings eaten. And then go ahead and copy all of this data that I am going to add. Once you have all your data set up, let's make it look a little bit nicer. And I'm going to go ahead and select my headings, and I want to make them bold. If you don't see it up at the top, click on the 3 little dots, and it'll give you some more options. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And now, if you notice in my column B, my heading is going into the next column, and I don't want that. So what I can do is hover over at the top till the little arrows show up, and if you click, you can then drag it to whatever size you want. So I can make it really big, but I don't want it that big. So if I want to resize it to the text, I just double click and it automatically resizes it. I'm going to do the same for my column A. So if I go up to the top and double click, it'll resize it to the text. Now I want to go ahead and put in my headings of all the statistics that we're going to find. So I'm going to skip column C, and I'm going to put all my headings in column D for minimum, maximum, range, etc. Once you have all of these values copied, let's go ahead and resize this column as well by double clicking. And now we're ready to find all these values using the formulas. But before I do that, it would be really helpful if I could sort my data from least to greatest from column B. So to do that, I don't want to select the headings. I want to select all my data below that. So I'm going to click on that first column, and then I'm going to drag to select all of my data. And then in the top tab, click Data and go to Sort Range. What this will let me do is, as it's set up right now, sorting by column A, it would sort that by alphabetical order, but I want to sort by the number of chicken wings and put it from least to greatest. So I'm going to change the column to column B. Before I click sort, I just want to point out, like, Jose has eaten 7 chicken wings. Crystal ate 65. So let's use those 2 people to make sure that our data is sorted correctly. So if I hit sort, if I look, Jose is still matched up with 7 and Crystal is still matched up with 65. So everything was sorted appropriately. Now, I realize this is a really small set of data, and you could just type in like the minimum. Obviously, it's 4 because it's the smallest number. The point of this is, imagine if you had 100 or 1,000 pieces of data. Instead of sorting through and finding all of these values by hand, we can use the formulas. So there's actually already a formula in here for minimum. So for all formulas, you have to hit equals first, and then I'm going to start typing the word minimum, M-I-N. And all of these functions will automatically populate. If you hover over it, like minute, it's a minute component of a specific time. Minus would find the difference between the 2 numbers. So we're going to use MIN for minimum. And if I click on it, it'll automatically populate, and it shows that it's a formula here. If I hover, it'll also tell me what information I need. So in this case, I need to use the arrows to select the range, and it's asking for my data set. So I'm just then going to click and drag and select all my data values. If you notice, these are showing the column and the space. So this is B2 is saying it's in column B, and it's the second row, and it's going all the way through B7. Now, if I just hit enter, it'll automatically will find the smallest value. It's going to try to populate other values, autofill them. It's not doing it correctly, so go ahead and hit the X and reject that suggestion, because these formulas are all going to be different. Now for maximum, there's also a formula that already exists. So we're going to do equals MAX and click maximum value in a data set. And again, select our original data set and hit enter. So our largest value is 65. To show you how powerful or why this is valuable, let's pay attention to the maximum value. And let's say I change this 10 to an 80 and I hit enter. It automatically will update it without me having to change that value somewhere else. So it's really helpful, especially when you have large data sets. Now for range, just as a reminder, when we find range by hand, it's taking the maximum number minus the minimum number. So we're going to create a formula for that. Like if I try to type equals range, nothing comes up. Like I get this biomedical distribution probability, but that's not what I want. So I'm going to create my own formula and subtract these 2 values, or the values in those cells. So my maximum value is right here, and I want to select that cell. So you hit type in equals and then just click where that maximum value is. So it's going to take that cell value, and we want to subtract wherever your minimum value is and select that cell. And we know 65 minus 4 is 61, and it's showing us that here. If I hit enter, it'll give you that actual value. The other thing that you want to see is if I click on a cell, it also up at the top will show you the formula that you already used. And if you select the range, it shows the formula in the box, but it'll also show you what cells are selected. That's helpful in case you forgot a value, or if you add a value, you may need to change that range. Okay? Going to mean, if I try to type in mean, there's no formula for that. However, if we remember, mean, you're adding up all the values and dividing by how many you have. That's also called average. So I'm going to put a little note here. Also the same as average. And that's in your notes. So let me get rid of this. And we're going to type average, and there's already a formula that exists in there. So I can select that and select all the values in my data set. And the answer should be 17.3 repeating. Median and mode both have their own formulas, so I can type in those words exactly. So median, if we remember, it's the middle value in a data set. And our answer is 9. The mode is the most occurring. So if we look in our data set, I have 2 10s. So my answer should be 10, most commonly occurring value. And again, select your data set. One other thing I want to show you is, let's say I change this 10 to a 12. Before I hit enter, I should notice that there's no values that are repeating, so there is no mode. So if I hit enter, how it shows that in the computer is it's going to give you an A. So it's not a mistake. Like if I click on it, I see that I am trying to find the mode. It's just there is no mode. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your own data. I'm going to switch it back so all my values are back to normal. Okay, now to find the lower quartile, I need to find the middle of the lower half of my data. So what's nice is these are already in order from least to greatest, and I have 6 values. So I'm going to go ahead to make it obvious in this video, like where my lower half is. I'm going to go ahead and take this, and also to practice copy paste, remember copy is Control-C, or you can right click and do copy there as well. So whichever way you would like. Then click on a cell down at the bottom. So we'll skip a couple lines, and I'm just going to copy that data down here. And I'm going to label this the lower half of data. And then resize my column. And then I'll do the same thing with the upper half. So 10, 10, 65 is the upper half of the data. And I'm going to copy and paste that down below here. So because the lower quartile is finding the middle of that lower half, I am still going to use median because median is just finding the middle of some data set. So if I do median, the only thing, if I'm clicking up in the main data set, maybe you make sure you only select the first half of the data. So that's why I copied it down below so there's no confusion. And I'm just going to select those 3 values and hit enter. And obviously, if I only have 3 numbers, if you have a bigger data set, it's more valuable, but the middle number is 7, and that's what I got, right? Now, if I do the upper quartile, I'm doing the same thing using median, and now I'm going to select the upper half of my data, which I know the answer should be 10. Now, to find the inner quartile range, you're going to take your upper quartile, which is Q3, and subtract the lower quartile, which is Q1. So we're going to do something similar to what we did for range, where we created our own formula with the cells that have those values. So for this, I'm going to double click and hit equals. And then I need to select the cell that has Q3, which is this one, where my 10 is. And then I'm going to do minus and select the cell where my Q1 value is, which is this 7. And then your cell numbers might be different. So just make sure it's wherever you calculated those values. And I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And I know that 10 minus 7 is 3, so that is correct. Now our formulas for upper outlier and lower outlier are as follows. So upper outlier is going to be Q3 plus my IQR times 1.5. And the multiplication sign is going to be the asterisk. So you'll have to do Shift 8 in order to put that in when we put in our formula. So I'm going to do equals, and my Q3 value is this cell plus my IQR, which is in this cell, and then multiply, so shift 8, 1.5. And my upper outlier value is 14.5. So what that means is if I have any numbers bigger than that in my data set, that's going to be an outlier, which in this case, I have 65, which is bigger, so 65 is an outlier. For my lower outliers, the formula is Q1 minus IQR times 1.5. And I'm going to create my formula the same way. So double click, hit equals, and I'm going to select the cell for my Q1 minus my IQR times 1.5, which in this case is 2.5. And in that case, my lower outliers would be any value that's smaller than 2.5. So if I look at my data set, I don't have any numbers smaller than 2.5, so there is no other outlier. So the only outlier is 65. And then standard deviation, this is the one you don't have to calculate it by hand, but you do need to calculate it in the spreadsheet. So you're going to do equals, and there's a formula for this. So you do STDEV for standard deviation. You'll click on that, but now you're going to go back and select the original data set. So I'm going to click and drag that and hit enter, and you're going to get 23.4577. And we'll talk about what that means in a future lesson. But if you can find all of these data values, you're in a really great spot. And what you're going to do is use these formulas on your one variable data. So you go back and do these same formulas on here by hand and in the computer. If you forget what the formula is, remember, just click on the block and it shows you up at the top the formula that you used for that. And if you click on it and you don't remember which cells you selected, just click on it and it'll show you the formula here and the cells you selected. Or if I go to range and I select up here, it even color codes which blocks are which. Hopefully you find this helpful. You then can use this to compare your hand calculated values with the ones in the computer, and those should match. Please let me know if you have any